Hello City Builders, this is Hubbub. Welcome back to Nuvo Springs on the Azure Gulf map in the Sunset Harbor DLC. Great to have you here. I was originally thinking that I might do this particular video as a live stream, but there's so many things that I want to try that could go wrong. I decided I want to be able to edit this just in case, so that it's more comprehensible to viewers depending on how things go. But before I explain the plan for this video, there's a couple things I need to take care of. I've been trying to demonstrate appreciation for subscribers by naming things in the city, so we're going to start with that immediately. Okay, so there are 4 subscribers and 1 apology, and I don't even know what I labeled with this, but there's a subscriber that I'm actually friends with on Facebook now, and I have to say, when I was recording people's names on a list, I lost a space, and so when I thanked this person, I thanked them as Rickle, and then I realized later, no, that's not Rickle, that's Rick L. And so I felt very embarrassed after the fact, and so I want to find a special building to name after this particular subscriber to show my genuine appreciation, and I think we're going to call this the Rick L. Residence. Let's see, the Rick L. Residence. That would work. So this used to be 111 West 57th in New York. We're going to call this Rick L. Residences. Let's call it the Residences. So thank you again, Rick L. And I very much apologize for my lack of attentiveness to good punctuation and grammar last time around. Thank you so much for being a subscriber. And then there's 1, 2, 3, 4 more people that I would like to thank. We're going to name the 432 Park Avenue, and we're going to name this, let's see, the Spataro Residences. Spataro Residences. And that is for the subscriber Fabio Spataro. Thank you so much for following. And then there's a gentleman by the name of William Smiley who is following. And I think what I want to do, I have these arcologies over here. We're going to use these arcologies and name these arcologies. I think that's better than calling it a launch prototype. So Mr. William Smiley, I'm going to call this the Smiley Residence. No, the Smiley Arcology Homes. And then the one right next door to it will be named the Robert Davis Arcology Homes. This Arcology Homes. And so thank you, Robert Davis, and thank you, William Smiley, for being subscribers. I really appreciate it. And then there's one last one I think I want to place on this, the Kitcha Idjit. Again, I was able to turn that into a residential tower, which is really cool from a gaming perspective. And we're gonna name this after the subscriber Benjamin Okaku. I want to thank you so much for subscribing to the channel. We're gonna call this the Okaku Residence Arcology. If I can learn how to type. Okay, so thank you again, Benjamin. I really appreciate your subscription to the channel, following the channel, and I hope that the videos are enjoyable. Okay, and that does it with new residents, or I'm sorry, new subscribers at the moment. So I want to talk a little bit about what's going on in the city, where we're at, where we've been. Okay, so I'd like to talk a little bit about where we've been and where I think we're heading with this entire city which is approaching very closely the citizen instances cap. I'm doing all right on population, but there isn't that much more buildable space on the. I mean, there is some buildable space, but I'm kind of feeling maybe that this city is almost done, and the only reason is aesthetically it looks organically complete, in my view, from a bird's eye view, with one boundary on this end and some boundaries on this end. It's a pretty sprawling metro area, and I'm really happy with how this build has gone over what's closing in on 2 years. Today, what I want to work on is mass transit. Over time, the city has really grown, and essentially, monorail has become my major regional connective modality. So when you look at this, you can see there's kind of an interior loop of monorail, and then there is a much larger exterior route of monorail, but the entire city is knit together by these tracks of monorail, in that I have several point-to-point and circular routes happening on the interior, and then one huge set of mirror routes that traverse the perimeter of the city. And that's the arterial level, if you will. The longer journeys. Shorter journeys are being covered by metro, tram, and a little bit of rail is left over from the early days of the city. I haven't decommissioned all of it. These stations are still active. There may be an unnecessary cost that I'm carrying here, but some of these are accepting intercity trains, some are not. This one is obviously a significant transfer point because there's 1,100 passengers, 1,400 passengers that have used this station, and it's not even allowing intercity trains. But this station here, I have a station over here, and then I have a station over here. And that's obviously the preferred station, which is interesting. But there are 3 stations throughout the city, so I'm allowing the game AI to determine where inter-regional passengers from off the map will disembark and embark. And then these stations are obviously transfer points, so that people coming in on rail can move into metro or busing. Similarly, over here, this is I'm kind of proud of this transfer point, as it's not an actual hub, but I think I've done a pretty good job in building pedestrian infrastructure so that people can move very easily from the monorail station over to the rail or the metro station over here. This metro station doesn't actually pull that many passengers, but it's still a connective point in the network. And then that brings me to what this video is really going to be about, which is my busing is just a mess. If this theory of organizing mass transit is appropriate or workable, then, you know, as I said, I have the monorail that's doing the big people moving on the longest distances in the city, and then metro taking these slightly shorter inter-neighborhood but section of the city trips, and the rail is doing a little bit of that. But part of what's happening in the city that's redundant that I really need to fix is the busing. Now, this says that I'm pulling almost 4,000 people on buses, but you can see all the pink are buses, and it's really kind of a mess. And this is always encouraging to see that many passengers. But if you count that as a percentage of total population, that's only about 5% of the total population that I'm moving as passengers on mass transit. But back to buses. Sorry, that was an unnecessary aside. when early in a city's development, all you have is busing. And so there's a period of time when the busing is basically working all three of those levels, the arterial, or the regional, the intra-neighborhood or intra-district, and then local. And so what I need to fix here is adjust my bus routes so that they are truly local neighborhood routes. If we look at this, you'll see, for example, and I don't know that this is necessarily a bad thing, but it's not in keeping with the model. I have some buses that are just basically doing one big loop up these one-way couplets right here. Well, the metro is doing that, and to some extent the rail is doing that. So why do I need buses doing that? When we first set the city up and all I had was buses, that made complete sense, but it makes no sense right now. Now, some of these routes, obviously, given the numbers, are relevant. And so some of these routes I'm going to have to reconstruct. Bus line 80, look at that. Wow, they're pulling 500 passengers a week. And that's an articulated bus. But one part of this is, my hope is that I can increase ridership if I set these routes appropriately, so that they're genuinely neighborhood routes that are connecting Sims to the transfer points, the monorail and the metro and the tram stops. So that's the goal for this video. And I'm going to do something really drastic. So I'm calling this a what if video. I am going to delete every single bus line and start from scratch. And the only major question mark in my head is, how smart is that? But the other question mark is whether I want to keep the game on pause for the whole duration and just reset these bus routes, or because what'll happen is, I'm really genuinely curious, what will happen is all those riders have to go somewhere. I'm moving 4,000 people on buses. So they're either going to shift over to rail and monorail and metro and tram, or they're going to start driving cars. So I am genuinely curious to let it run after I decommission all those bus routes and see how much of that ridership shifts over to the other modalities, or how much it impacts my traffic flow. Right now, I'm really proud of this traffic flow. I finally have despawning disabled completely, and I've also been able to troubleshoot what was causing the trains. They better not be backed up. What was causing the trains to be backed up? I don't know if it was something wrong with the spawn point or something wrong with a modding compatibility, but I had dozens and dozens of dummy passenger trains, which I have turned off in the mod, but they're still showing up on my rail, that were clogging the rail up. And so when I would go into despawning mode, I would end up with rail all over the city, not able to move. And that's obviously not a good thing, because that affects the ripple effects there are tremendous. But now, finally, I can say, even with some of this wonky lane rail that I have here, the whole system has been running for, in game time, I don't know how many weeks, but in my time, at least 10 hours with despawn disabled, and I've been able to troubleshoot everything. And what I'm really pleased about, for example, is right over here, you can see there's some backing up, but this used to be backing up all the way over to the highway, and I just did a few tweaks with TMPE to adjust the lane markers so that I'm pushing vehicles to use this second lane. We're moving well, now 97 right now. We're moving a significant amount of traffic through this cargo terminal, and the cars are not backed up. Not backed up very far, and sometimes they're freely moving. So I'm really happy with how this is working. The only place I have this huge oil refinery out here, and there's always a nice big line of trucks out here, but it's not a line that's getting bigger. The road is handling things. This is set up just fine. For some reason here, they all want to crowd into this one lane, and they're just not coming in this. Oh, that's because, oh, okay, so that's why. I could fix that. Oh, well, that's why. Now, I don't know if that will encourage additional cars to come this way. They're still going to try to scrunch into that lane. But that's all right. This one's pulling 103. And so even though we have this long line of traffic in that Central Avenue there, we still have really good flow out here. %85 overall in the city. I'd like to get over 90 in my next build, but generally speaking, I'm really happy that we've got despawning disabled completely, and we're just not seeing any messes. So now I should get to business, and I should take care of these bus routes. So I'm going to pause it. I'm going to decommission all the bus routes, and then I'm going to run it. So I'm calling this a what if video. But I am genuinely curious to see what happens to traffic flow. Will all 4,000 of those people start driving their cars again? Will they switch over to Metro? It'll kind of depend, right? Will they switch over to Metro and monorail? And rail and tram, half and half. What happens to traffic flow when this is done? So we're going to pause this while I'm doing it. Definitely see a little bit of it. Oh, holy smokes, look at that. Okay, so before this gets any worse, why should I let it get 10 times worse? Before this gets any worse, now most of this looks like it's industrial traffic. This is not happening in neighborhoods, but we are seeing a drop. I'm not going to let oh my, wow, okay. Let's pause this for a second, because I bet if we look at all these cars, oh lordy, why are all those buses? Oh, I didn't even think of that. That's all the that's all the buses returning to their stations. All the buses are returning to their stations. I'm sorry, yeah, returning to their depots. Holy smokes. I wonder if I should just go clear all those buses out manually. Turning to depot. Doesn't show. Yes, it does. Okay, let's see. Where's our depot? That I didn't expect to see. Oh, wow. Well, I may have to ride that out. So some of this is buses. Okay, we're just gonna take these buses off the road. Talk about a wave of unintended consequences. I should have foreseen that. Now you know what? An easier answer for this, rather than to manually decommission all these, is if I just turn on despawning for a split second. No, they won't. Okay, so I do have to decommission all these. No, I don't. They're moving. Okay, traffic is clearing. I think that'll be a momentary problem. It's not going to be something that lasts long. Although I do need to keep an eye on that. What I need to do now is look at metro, monorail, and we're going to look at traffic loads across the system, because we are. I wonder. We're not seeing those people come back unless they're all standing in line. See, now I might want to add. See, this train's going to come through here and pick these folks up. I think that's okay. I could add another train on this track, on this line. I think that'll be fine. If I sit here and stare at it, no, because, well, we don't know how many of those people are going to get off at that station. That's the waterfront station at the park. We may see all 300 of those people get picked up. Yep. Okay. Okay, so now what I need to do is start looking at my neighborhoods, looking at my transfer points, and start building local bus routes that mirror each other, that are circular bus routes that deliver people from neighborhoods to transfer points. We have a major transfer point here. We have... This is like, I could almost decommission that station. I bet you there's 0 people on that. No, 83. Okay. We have a transfer point right here, but no passengers there, which is interesting. I could be catching it at the wrong time. We have a monorail station right here. So we have a major transfer point here. I don't know that I would qualify this as a transfer point. They're too far apart. They might be close enough that people walk. Do I have walking accessibility there? We have park paths. We have sidewalks. So there may be some walking. Up here, we have a transfer point between monorail and this train station. Here, I need to... No, wait. I have the trams doing connectivity from this sector over here. So I have a tram route set up that's moving people... 2 tram routes actually mirroring each other, moving people from this part of town on this side of the river over here. Those tram routes are pretty productive, but these neighborhoods now have no bus service. So I need to put some bus service in here. Need bus service in here. There's a transfer point right here. Between that, look at that. See, I wish I had done this in a way that I left myself space to put in a pedestrian bridge. I could add a stoplight at that intersection, but... And there's some... Nope, there really aren't people getting piled over by cars. But nobody in this neighborhood now has bus service. Nobody over here has bus service. These commercial buildings now are to a certain extent cut off from passengers because how do you get here? You walk. This is not connected at all. There's a metro station here. No, wait, where was I? I was looking at this. Oh, no, wait, this has a metro station there. This does not. But, you know, we've got the Gherkin right here. So that needs a bus route. So that's going to be the next task, is to add local bus routes throughout the entire city. We have this nice shopping mall over here that had too many bus routes, but now there's none. See, that's just fascinating. I lost all those riders, but I did not have an uptick in... I did not have a decline in traffic flow. Unemployment's still at 3%. That's really bizarre. So they didn't hop over. Okay, this part I'm probably going to do on time lapse. I really don't have a good game plan for how I should manage this. Essentially, this neighborhood is serviced by that monorail, so I should have a bus route that connects this neighborhood to that monorail. So let's see if we can build that. Is this where I want to start? Now, out of curiosity, let's see. Oh, they're not there yet. Okay, so they haven't arrived. So, but I don't see people lining up. I don't see too many people lining up here. Let's cut this down to 3. If I have to increase it, I can. Let's go to bus line 2. Don't see people lining up here either. Let's cut that down to 3. I do think I want a line. I want a single line that bounces back and forth from this monorail station to because that is the only thing that's kind of strange about this. This shopping center is placed perfectly with respect to this subdivision and this subdivision, but it is fairly well removed from the 2 monorail stations. So we're going to do the same thing here. If I create a line right here, and I'm going to have to remember not to use those stops for anything else. And then yep, okay, so we do have crosswalks there. So then if I place a stop here, do the exact same thing, only we're on this side of the street now. So now we have a little express bus route that's going from these monorail stops. And if I wanted, I could throw in a couple stops on these lines. I don't know if I should worry about that right now. Welcome back, City Builders. This is Hubbub, returning to in-game live play following that time lapse where I spent several hours actually reconstructing bus routes in the city. I was really curious to see how it would affect traffic flow and overall performance with ridership. When I first started this build, I was achieving 10% ridership, where riders I calculated as a percentage of the overall city population. And over time, as the city has grown bigger, that has dropped from 10% to around 5 or 6%. And it's been kind of bugging me. I don't know exactly why, and it doesn't seem to be too much of a problem because traffic flow is still pretty good. And this is now finally successfully with despawning off. And my guess has been that maybe an increase in bike ridership and pedestrian use would would play a role. We could certainly see, wow, in the last, I remember when this happened, and I honestly forget why that happened. It does look like bike ridership has gone up. I don't know to what extent that has been tracking with population, because population has gone up significantly. But back to the main point. The main point was the drop in percentage a result of increased bike and pedestrian infrastructure, and so people are walking now. I don't think it's an unusual observation to make that Sims will walk anywhere. I think most people who play this game recognize that. And so I wanted to see if shifting up these bus lines would have any kind of impact. Now, there has been an impact, and that's what I want to review right now. So when I first started dismantling all those bus lines, I had 73 bus lines, and they were going every which way. Because when I first started the city, the buses were the only transportation modality that I had at the beginning, and so I was using buses for local short range and long range trips. And over time, as the city leveled up and new modalities were available, I began using metro, and rail and trams for medium range trips. And then over the long haul, I was using trains for really long range trips. But then as soon as monorail became available to me, I love the monorail in the game. And so I always build out a really extensive monorail system. And so that's what I've been working with. But in the meantime, I had never updated the bus routes. And so that was the objective. I wanted to try to build bus routes that would, for the most part, connect neighborhoods with transfer points and stations of other modalities. And so if we take a close look at this, now one thing I did do here was, because this shopping center is meant to kind of serve all of these neighborhoods, but it can be a hub for the region. And so I did install a bus line that goes straight from this monorail station up through this shopping center, and also from this monorail station into this shopping center. But you can see essentially what I've done is I've built these local routes to connect these neighborhoods with each of these monorail stations. So this neighborhood is connected with this one, this neighborhood is connected with this one, and then this neighborhood is connected with this monorail station. And I'm doing the same thing across the map with Metro. With Metro and with Tram as well. Although Tram is a different creature altogether. And so I'm just using mirroring routes. Sometimes I will offset those mirroring routes so that now I didn't do it here. Let's see, did I do it over here? So like sometimes I'll offset those routes so this road is getting coverage from this route going this way, and then this route, rather than tracking back down that road, this route will come down this road. And I think it's a nice way to get additional coverage, is to have, yes, these routes are mirroring each other, but if there's a road that doesn't have service, I can pull that route down that road instead. I think it makes for better coverage. And so that's what I've done throughout the entire map now. And what do I end up with? I had that written down. Oh, there it is. It's right in front of me. I'm reducing from what previously were 77 lines to what are now 54 lines of buses. And what I was really curious to see was, okay, what happens to those riders? Because there were 4,000 riders. Now there are only 3,000 riders. And I'm going to talk more specifically about some of those numbers here in a sec. But what was really fascinating was when I deleted all of those bus routes, there was no change in traffic flow. I had a momentary jam where I had hundreds of buses trying to return to the bus depot, but that cleared up after a few minutes, and traffic flow has been consistent at 86% throughout. And also, what happened initially was none of those 4,000 riders, or few of those 4,000 riders, migrated over to other modalities, and some of that had to do with changing the number of vehicles on different lines so that they could pick up more riders. But it's like those 4,000 riders just disappeared. So I'm thinking that what happens in the game is that Sims will walk when it's a short trip, and if it's a longer trip, they drive their cars. And for either, if there's a modality of mass transit available, they'll use mass transit. But if a Sim is looking for a short range journey and the only mass transit available is medium or long range, obviously they're not going to take that medium or long range trip. Kind of makes sense if you think about it in the real world. All right, city builders, so let's just talk through these numbers a little bit and try to make an evaluation of whether this was a worthwhile pursuit. Previously, I was operating 73 bus lines, and I was moving approximately 4,100 Sims on buses and 1,500 tourists. Now, I'm operating 54 bus lines, and it looks like I'm moving 3,090 residents and 1,181 tourists, which is roughly the same number of residents and tourists on bus lines per bus line. But the real difference, and there's little difference in total Sims moved. Previously, I was moving 11,108 Sims and 7,000 tourists with a resident population of 252,417, which represented 7.2% of the population. Right now, you can see I have a bit of a surge of usage, 10,271 residents plus 7,227 tourists gives me a total of 17,498 per week divided into 247,431. I'm looking at 7% of the population in ridership, which is the same as it was before. What's different, my treasury is a little bit more stable. It's about 2 million simoleons higher than it was when I began this enterprise, and that's with a lower population. So I do think I achieved some cost benefit. I'm really curious to know what happens to Sims when transit isn't available, because my flow is the same, ridership is relatively the same. Obviously, Sims are inclined to walk or ride their bikes if you make the policies and the infrastructure available, and they'll choose that. No, and then they'll choose transit if it's available. So, back to the drawing board. If I want to get that 3% back, then I need to study transit models again and see if there's any way I can adopt a better transit model for this city. I'm not a big fan of hub and spoke, and so I tend to go point to point and then let natural organic transfer points develop. So, like, for example, right here, we have a train station, we have a metro, we have a monorail. Up here, I have a very informal transfer point with the metro here and a metro here, because I had to add metro when I built out this section of the city, and we have thousands of people jumping across this bridge. There's some useful redundancy over here. For example, this monorail station was previously pulling around 2,000 riders a week, and it was just too much for that monorail station to handle because I had trains backing up in order to keep up with it. And so I did add a little metro line from here over to the stadium and then the airport, this little loop, and then bringing it back here. We seem to be in a bit of a lull at this moment, but this metro line has picked up a significant amount of ridership from the monorail, so that's helping quite a bit. Let's see, we have a transfer point over here with trams and buses coming through here, and a metro station right here, and another metro station across the street, monorail station just a short walk away, and then over here, this park with the Tokyo radio station several informal transfer points where trams are coming through at the same spot, buses are coming through at the same spot. Some buses are coming down this side street, some buses are coming down this side street. So you can see there's a lot of pedestrian traffic along these paths here at the library. So that works for me. This tram right here, 28 people. These trams are bringing Sims across the river to this part of the city. So I bet you this is pretty full. Look at that, 133 in that tram right there. So that's a form of light rail that's point to point with the transfer station. And then from here, there are buses that are taking people throughout to the neighborhoods. So what have I learned? Have I learned anything? I learned how to make mirroring bus routes in neighborhoods and tie my bus routes to the short range bus routes to the longer range, medium range, metro and monorail modalities. The Sims prefer to walk, but if you give them mass transit, they'll use mass transit. And if you have good street hierarchy, then you're going to be okay with your traffic flow. Because clearly, the quality of my transit system did not affect traffic flow at all. In fact, when I decommissioned all those bus routes, I had a temporary road jam of buses trying to come off at this exit point to return to a bus depot. And so I had hundreds of buses lined up. And so I did have a momentary drop in traffic flow, but it came back as soon as all those buses cleared out. So, all right. So the next step with this city then is going to be to add a new airport. This airport has been quite serviceable for a very, very long time. Hey, there's a plane landing right there. That means we have a whole fleet landing. But the DLC's coming out. I'm really stoked for that DLC. I've been looking at lots of different international airports. This city is a big city. There's 250,000 Sims in this city. Using a benchmark of 1 to 4, that's roughly equivalent to a million resident population. It might not be quite a million, but a big city like the size of Houston, I think Houston's got about 500,000 people in it, would have 2 airports. Houston has 2 airports, Hobby and Houston Intercontinental. Denver, with 300,000 people in a huge metro area, has settled for 1. So I'm going to try to build in 2, and I have been modeling this with a cargo airport and a second airport out here. So I am paying, and my city budget is managing pretty well. I did have to raise taxes on industries and office, but I still have my commercial taxes pretty low. And I was looking at Munich. I was looking at the Changi Airport in Singapore. I've been looking at Denver International for the satellite concourse system. And this is the general schematic that I'm thinking about. These are going to disappear, obviously. These 2 dirt roads are going to be my runways, I think. And then I'm going to build in the airport facility inside those 2 runways. What'll happen is when the DLC drops, I will decommission this airport and start my airport district over here and put in a very basic terminal with runway to start leveling up the whole region quickly. And then there's a little trick I saw in Biffa's videos where you can use your district painter to draw little tiny paths across the map. So like I have, let's see, there's an example right there. I have this path is connecting my universities together across the map. Now I don't need it there, but basically if I can map a path here, map a district here, and then bring the rest of it over here. And so that's the game plan. So that by the time I'm ready to actually build this, I'll already be at level 3. I'm really looking forward to that DLC. That'll take me through March probably. And I guess that's about it that I have for this video entry. So I want to thank you so much for watching, everyone. I really appreciate your time and attention. This is Hubbub signing off.